Air freight charges are generally calculated on what is called the chargeable weight. This chargeable weight comes from the comparison of the actual weight and the volumetric weight. The volumetric weight is based on the volume of freight and an agreed weight-volume ratio. Volumetric weight is also commonly called dimensional weight. The IATA rule is that 6 cubic meters of space are considered the equivalent of 1 metric ton. This ratio is much higher than in other modes. This is due to the space restriction on the aircraft. For airplanes, weight is less a challenge than space. To help you better understand this concept, we will now look at a couple of scenarios. In our first scenario, the case we want to ship by air is 120 centimeters long, 80 wide, and 60 high, for a weight of 187 kilos. There are two main ways to calculate the volumetric weight, the long one and the short one. In the long one, we start by calculating the volume. We multiply the length by the width by the height and divide that by 1 million to get our volume in cubic meters. So in our example, 120 times 80 times 60 divided by 1 million, which gives 0.576 cubic meters. Then, based on the rule that 6 cubic meters equals 1 metric ton, we simply divide this volume by 6. Hence, 0.576 divided by 6, which gives 0.096 metric tons, or 96 kilos. These 96 kilos represent our volumetric weight. We then simply compare this weight with the real weight, also called the actual weight, and take the highest of the two. So in our example, the volumetric is 96, the actual is 187, therefore the chargeable weight will be 187. Now that you are familiar with the concept, we would like to show you the shorter and faster methodology. We once again multiply the length in centimeters by the width by the height, but this time we divide it by 6,000. And this will give us directly the volumetric weight in kilos. So in our example, 120 times 80 times 60 divided by 6,000, which gives 96 kilos of volumetric weight. This weight would then be compared again with the actual one. This shorter methodology is the preferred one when working with the Imperial system. In our second example, we want to ship a case which is 50 inches long, 40 wide, 30 high, and weighs 320 pounds. To calculate our volumetric weight, we multiply the length in inches by the width by the height, and we divide the result by 166. This will give us our volumetric weight in pounds. So in our example, 50 times 40 times 30 divided by 166, which gives 361.44 pounds of volumetric weight. This weight is generally rounded up to the closest half kilo or half pound. Once again, we then simply compare the volumetric weight, aka the dimensional one, with the actual weight. So in our example, 361.5 pounds versus 320. In this second scenario, the volumetric weight is the highest and will become the chargeable one. If your contractual rates are based on kilos, you can simply multiply this number by 0.454 to get your weight in kilos. In these examples, which we hope would have helped you understand the concept of chargeable weights, we use the ratio of 6, which is the standard IATA one. But please be aware that some other providers, notably the larger integrators, will often impose 5 cubic meters to 1 metric ton, or 128 cubic inches per pound. This plays in their favor and will make your low density cargo even more expensive to ship with them. If you have contracted air lanes available for your business, the volumetric weight coefficient should be defined in these contracts. Please note that depending on your contract or spot quote, in most cases, the volumetric weight rule would also apply for the calculation of pre-carriage and on-carriage charges. Typically, you will get a door-to-door rate in dollars per kilo, and this kilo will refer back to the chargeable kilos. Finally, please be aware that volumetric weight is also used for other modes, ocean, truckload, but with different coefficients and rules.